That way I know where all the conversation starts for this section. Because I built a system. I got a couple hours on Saturday where everything wasn't out of control, and I built a note taking system. And what it does is I capture the audio part of this section because I talk a lot, and keeping notes is not always good. Another thing I do is Savvy Otter provided me with a link on how to download the chats. And what I'm trying to do is concatenate them together so that what I'm saying matches up with the timing that you guys have on what you're saying, so that it's easier for me to follow the conversation in real time on paper. So what I built on Saturday using some techniques I found on the internet is I can take the WAV file or an MP3 file of my talking, like I'm talking here, and take that and put it into Google Docs, and then Whisper picks it up, and Pipe Dreams picks it up and translates it into text, and then summarizes it, and then gives me questions and some other things on it. It does a little thing for it, which actually helps out quite a bit. So we end up with a Word document at the end that both converts the text, but also gives you a list of points made, as well as questions that probably someone would ask after reading it. It's a pretty good system. So I'm pretty happy with it. I did some tests with it with all of last week's stuff, and it didn't turn out too bad. So I can show you a brief look behind. Let me see if I can get one of the documents so I can show you what it spits out at the end. I think I put it in Docs. Where did I put it? That is not where I put it. Oh, it would be in Translate, and it's on the network. So let me see if I can even get to it from here. I may not be able to. Okay, boop, 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 boop. Shell folder, Translate. Oh, let's say Docs, not that one. Movies, no. So it's done. Okay. Oh no, this was the other thing I was working on. Oh, that's weird. I could have swore I was just looking at it, but no. Hmm. I know I saved it. Maybe I didn't. That would be funny. It would be damn funny if I didn't save it, in any of it, and then I have to do it all over. That would part of that would make me laugh. Let me finish digging here just for one more second. Let's see if I put them. No, they should have been in this directory. New docs, movies, fun. No. Yep, lost them. Okay, I can't show you what I worked on. Well, that's pretty lame. Let me see if I can find it this way. I was very happy that I got it done and working, but for some reason, it is not showing up on my drives. So that concerns me. Because I did it. I know I worked on it on this machine. It wasn't on one of the other ones. Hmm. Nope, not showing up. Hmm. Weird. No, it's all gone. Okay, well, we will let this search out on the main page and we will come back to it. Hopefully we'll be able to find where everything went missing. No, it's not showing up at all. Real Dragonium, very much. Thank you for the follow. There's no way I didn't save all that. I know I did. I hate when that happens. I did 7 days worth of putting this stuff together and cannot find it on the machine. But I know I did it on this machine, so it's been that kind of weekend. We open this in another window and then we'll let it search and then I'll come back to it. Oh, by date. Good. And by the other date. Thank you. No, there'd be a lot more of MP3s than that. Okay. Yeah, apparently I've ditched it somewhere and just can't find it. Oh, wait. Let's go to this directory. I think this is, I think I may have found it. Yes, I have found it. Good. All right. Sorry about that. Game dev time. Yes, birthday boy is busy. Yep, dev time. I'm back. Had to call brother for his birthday. Cool. But it seems his phone is busy. Did you leave him a birthday message? So let me see if I can pull this up here and I will show you kind of how it kind of works of what the outcome is. I'm using Whisper and those kind of things in OpenAI programs to do this. So it's actually pretty cool. And all I have to do, the way it's set up, is all I have to do is just take an MP3 of the recordings for that day and show them and put them in my Google Drive, and then everything else happens automatically. We have just a couple seconds before we're going into a zombie thing, and I will come back out of that and show you how that's kind of working. So as soon as the zombie is over, I found it and we can show it. I don't know why it got, don't know why it got lost. So let's wait for the zombie. I like automation. Well, this is pretty cool automation. And the next thing I have to do is for the chat part, for your guys' part, there's some lining up problems and things like that I still have to fix, but you'll get the basic idea of where we're going. As soon as we get back, I'll show you how it kind of works. And it's pretty cool for any kind of notes. So you can I had something similar to it a while back when I was working on my book. I still have to finish the book, but this is something that can help me finish it as well. So here we go. Zombie and some other guy.
Brains.
Dooba-dooba-dooba-doo. Okay, so we are back. So the basic thing that this thing creates, so let me pull this up. I had to delete some personal information off of the top of it, but get a open window. Where's our windows? Here's one. I'm going to go to Wood. So here's what the automation does. Let me get our logo down. Come down here. Turn this on. So what it does is it pulls my audio file, and this is the only thing I give it, is I give it the audio file, and it does a summary of the audio file. So in this particular case, this was us discussing things on Friday. So the speaker discusses the impacts of Nintendo pricing on game development, highlighting potential tariff effects and the considerations of pricing. So it's all the things that we talked about on Friday, and it gives a summary of it at the top. Then it gives the full transcription of all the spoken word, which is really cool because now I can take this and line it up to your guys's input in chat. Now, the one thing I want to see if they can do is for each of these is add time code to it, because if they could add time code to each line, that means I can use any program to put those two together, because I can just match time code and it will put everything in order. So then we goes down here, and then it gives you, okay, breathe. This is the whole thing. I was talking about some silly stuff. So this is still transcript. So it does a pretty good job. And the good thing about it compared to the other ones that I was playing with, it does punctuation. And if you've ever seen like a transcript of spoken word, sometimes it's just a literally 25, 30 pages of text. No punctuation, no nothing. It does punctuation. And then at the bottom here, and we're almost there, transcript. Then it does, okay, main points. It gives me all the main points. We talked about the impact of Nintendo pricing on game development economics. Consideration of tariffs and pricing based on annual income in different regions, influence of world economics on game pricing. These, because we had talked about it, visualize the game world on paper, because we were talking, someone had written in and said, what can I do? And I said, just draw it on paper, and do some stuff, seek feedback from other people, because we told him have other people he knows play the game, focus in gameplay. So it does all that. And then it does some story examples. It's like the speaker explains historical revenue. So any story, any metaphors that I used, or any things like that, it points out. Then it also does reference and citations. So it can give you references for things to go look at for the things we talked about. Because we talked about Gaiman's book, Norse mythology. We talked about economics, considering in game development. We talked about Blizzard's approach to creating cinematics and storytelling, and it says go and look these things up. And then it says potential action items, which I thought was hilarious, because I'm like, I am one person. I am not getting these things done in the schedule that it has created, but it does give me an idea of things that we should be talking about, things we should be doing. So I thought that was pretty cool. So we got research specific tariffs, study percentages of annual income, the things that we talked about, but it says, okay, here's things you should go out and do to further up. And then follow-up questions. How do other game developers navigate pricing challenges in different regions? What strategies can game companies use to adopt to changing economics and conditions? It gives you some follow-up questions that you can say, okay, let's go a little bit further in this. So, and we also talked about the otter. So how can the otter's mythical connections be further explained to enrich the narrative? What are the potential consequences of the otter's involvement in the plot against Loki? And as we talked about him being the spirit of the dwarf that Loki killed. And will Odin's eye work before the world tree connects? That's a good question. Will it work? If he has it, I don't think it should. When should Odin give the player the all-seeing eye? So it just did that, and it also tells you there's possibility for mistakes and stuff like that. But now I can say, okay, go and do this for every single WAV file or MP3 for every day of the week, and that's what I did. So if I close this, don't save because I didn't want to. But if we open this window back up in the directory itself, is the right directory? Yeah. So that's what I did for every single day, from last Thursday till Friday. So, okay, show me these things. Show me what it's supposed to be, And then there is a breakdown for every single day now that covers what was talked about. And then there's also, if I want to go back and listen, there's also the WAV file. And this is raw data here, but this is what the overall goal is to get these summaries, and having a simple summary of every single day is actually kind of cool, and the way it's set up. Let me see if I might be able to show you how it's set up here in Pipedream, because that's what it's in. Is this the one? Yeah, I just need to make sure that there's no connecting data in here that I need to hide. Okay, I can't. Okay, that's all encrypted, so I can show the top half. I can't show the bottom half. So if we look at, no, I can't do that. There's too much private data on the Pipedream workflow. But basically, there's three pieces to the Pipedream workflow. Is number one piece is the trigger. What triggers it to actually do its thing? And the trigger is if I drop a new MP3 file into a certain directory on my my Google Drive. If I drop if I drop a new MP3 file on that drive, then it will automatically trigger. And with that trigger, it will download that file to a neutral space. It will send it to Whisper at OpenAI to translate. Then it will bring it back and then send it to another AI that will read through it all, summarize it, put follow-up questions on it, put all that other stuff on it, and then kick it back to my Google Drive. So unfortunately, I can't show the Pipe Dream page because it has too much of my data on it. That is not a good thing. Can't show that stuff. You know, it also shows accounts and things like that. But that's how I'm doing the notes as of today. Today will be the first day that I'll be doing it live, because then I still need to find a way to get time code onto the output, because I don't think, here's my problem, is if I can get it to put time code on it, that solves several things. Number one, if you're ever working on a project, and those of us that have done this in the past, is it's the worst thing you can give someone to do is to transcribe a speech or an event that was recorded for subtitling. It is the worst thing you can give someone to do. And I've had to give this to people several times. Though this will give you the words to it, because we used to have to just type it. So if, like, we were doing a quarterly review with a company and we were taping it, somebody would have to come back and listen to Mike Morhaime and them talk again and type it all up into text, because we didn't have any tools for it. And then we'd have to go and put it against the video and mark all the time codes for everything. And that's probably one of the worst jobs you can give somebody. But if we could do this, where it picks up the time code automatically based on the punctuation that it's using for what our needs are, because the stuff coming out of the chat room already has time code on it when I download it using the app that I was told about. All I have to do then is just match those time codes. And then I have the whole transcript of our whole conversation in one place that I can do most anything with, as well as put it into like a Word or something like that and just have it read it to me. You know, and having it read in order is actually a very helpful thing, because I can sit down and take my my rewriter and write down notes and things like that, and then add to it later. So it's a pretty cool little setup, and it took me a while to get it working. It took like several many hours to get it working, and then had to couldn't get it working, then had to stop, delete it, and try again. Yeah, so that's one of the tools I would say. And what's really good, if for those of you that are like going to long meetings and stuff like that, if you have a recorder and you're recording those meetings, you can use this same system completely unchanged, exactly how it is, to transcribe those meetings, as well as give you follow-up questions and main points for the meeting that you're in, which I think is phenomenal. Like, I wish I had it when I was doing a lot of meetings, because you get to the point, and a lot of you will probably agree with this, you go to so many meetings now, you don't remember what was said in each meeting, and sometimes conflicting things are said in meetings, and that just turns into a mess. And most meetings should not be meetings, they should be emails. And I know you all agree on that one, that have to go to 1,000 meetings a day. But yeah, so these are the outputs that I get from everything, and it's actually pretty cool. And bloop. My admin assistant does it for me. Oh, that's cool. All the time. Tell that to my CTO and CEO. All meetings should be emails. Absolutely, but I think that creative meetings cannot be email. Business meetings can. Plus, and I've made this very clear, I really like getting creative people in one room and hashing stuff out, and that's a huge one for me. Yeah, I ran a volume capture team on several big budget movies, and I was in meetings most of the day. I don't miss that. Yeah. My problem with meetings, like I said, is my biggest problem with meetings. Too many. And if you're in different meetings all day long, which a lot of people are, by the end of the day, you don't remember what you promised in the first meeting or the second meeting or the third meeting. You just don't remember. It's really difficult. Let's have a meeting, decide if we need to meet. Yeah, I've been in those meetings too, Savvy. Yes, that is a joke, but it's also a reality for a lot of people. I've had a lot of meetings about meetings, and it's just like, no, just stop. Send me an email. I'll tell you my opinion, then we'll move on. Okay, let's see. The problem is that most senior staff in my company absolutely suck at both reading comprehension and writing. Well, that's a problem too. The worst type of meeting. Yes. Amounts of notes, probably unnecessary. Well, I need notes, in all honesty, because I do get the way my mind works. I need the governance of notes, because a lot of things that I say, I 100% believe, but they are literally. Thank you, CW, for the follow. They're literally stream of consciousness of what my subconscious believes and what I believe. Because I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it, because I do fight with my subconscious in my head quite a bit. Let's see where we are. Thankful we had coordinators that took notes. Yeah, the some of the producers were absolutely phenomenal. I screamed Jenny's praises day and night because Jenny kept me on track on all kinds of things. But yeah, emails are emails. Some things work better with the interaction that comes from having people all in one meeting discussing something. You are right, Moon. The problem comes when they take even the smallest things and make them into a meeting and then invite people that really don't need to be part of the decision for the meeting that they've been asked to come to. So I think on average, you probably have about 30-40% of the people in a meeting that, number one, shouldn't be there. Number two, have nothing to do with what's being discussed. You also have a situation where people call meetings and don't tell you what they're for. So you can't prepare for them, and you can't decide whether it's something that you really should be going to or not. So that's the biggest problem. If we can eliminate just those parts alone, I don't think the other meetings would be that big a deal. Meetings are just like other tools. Works for what they work for. Sometimes I don't attend meetings without an agenda 24 hours prior. It's a good idea. With no agenda are the worst. I simply decline those. Yeah. And I think you should be allowed to. But there are some companies that if a meeting's called, You have to show up and you have to be there. Now, to today's stuff is I I was able to work a little bit on the note things and get the note thing working on Saturday. Yesterday I was out all day and wasn't in front of a computer, doing helping and doing a birthday party for Frigg's nephew, which was kind of cool. And then there were a couple flat tires we had to fix, and then some other things. So I got absolutely nothing other than the note taking stuff done this weekend. Yeah. Yep. All the shiny new colors. Okay. Meetings don't work for the majority of what it's used. A meeting is for senior management to be sure it's on the same track. We need to have a meeting through every single level without in a company, then you have no ideas. Well, to me, those kind of meetings that you're talking about means that your production team has failed. Because part of your production team's job is not only to keep you on track and things like that, but also to keep information flowing up and down the food chain. And if your production staff is failing, then some pretty brutal meetings are called, and mostly it's because people at the top don't know what's going on. And that sucks because they need to be informed. I'm really big on tell them everything. Yeah. Here we go. This is what's going on. Yeah. Because most meetings are called because people just don't have the information they need, in all honesty. It's very rare that a meeting for new stuff, something new and exciting happens, and even those can be lost in the shuffle of these middleman meetings that are just about nobody's talking to us. Tell us what the hell's going on. Because as a manager, you have a responsibility to make sure information is moving up and down the food chain. And if it isn't, you're failing. And that also includes making the work that your team's doing visible. One of the things that I worked hard on when in the position I was in the UK was helping the team that I managed be more visible to, oh my God, wait. Oh, it's pouring outside. I'm hearing something in my headphones and I'm just like, what the hell is that? And then I realize it looks like it's pouring outside. Yep. I should put my car outside so it can go get washed. Get whooshed. Well, I think that the teams have an moon, to your point of, however, some people feel like they need more information than they have, but really they should take a step back and trust the teams working on it. You're half right. Yes, they absolutely should trust the teams, but the team still has an obligation to make sure they have the information so that they can trust them. Because a team that is a black box is the absolute worst thing for upper management in every possible way. I think I just lost power for a second. Are we still on? Hopefully we're still sending. Yeah, we've lost power, but all my stuff is still working. So we are on. All right. So there's a possibility that I will be disconnected in, it looks like about 10-15 minutes. And I think power just came back on. Did it? No, because we're still counting down over here. All right, so the big rains have brought a power outage. But based on our last power outage that we had, I changed things over to where everything for the stream is on the backup boxes. But we have about 200 watts left in the backup system. So we will see. We will see. I need to see what's plugged in that isn't working. Everything kind of came back on. Wow. Okay. All right. So we are still there. However, my house is, the power's off in the house. Everything right now that runs this is on backup power supplies. So okay, they're not going to learn better by being stuck in meetings. True. So another thing is meetings will drive you absolutely insane. Because I've had days where meetings are all day long, and yet the work I'm supposed to be doing isn't done, and that drives me absolutely insane. There is nothing that makes me just like completely freak out more than that. If you want to end the stream to, no, the power's okay because I have several battery systems on everything. It looks like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to check something real quick. Just give me a second. Okay, yeah, the power is back on. What I did was I turned the bathroom light on so that it will go off even though everything here will stay on if the power goes off again. But my battery backup systems work perfectly and we kept going. So and you're absolutely right, Moon. It is not so much about the juniors. It is about who's managing them and who their producers are. A producer's job is to make sure that all the information is flowing back and forth. If they are not doing their jobs, it can make a team look bad. It can do some pretty good damage to a team. But they're also, another one of their jobs is just to be keeping awareness of what that team is doing and making sure other people are seeing what that team is doing, because that is what kills a team faster than anything else. Is if, as I was saying, is if your team is a black box and people send things in there, they don't know anything about how it's done, they don't know anything about what you guys are doing, they're not, most teams are not going to look at what that team's doing other than what they're doing for them, which means you, throughout the company, you're only getting credit in meetings of bigger people that are getting information put up. You're only getting credit for the little thing that you did for that person. You probably won't get credit for everything you're doing everywhere. What we had done at the last position was we built a website. We built all kinds of things. We also built a weekly newsletter. We started putting together all these communication systems to get the work that the team was doing out to everybody in the company so they could see. It also comes in handy because once so much stuff is given to a team that is so overburdened that it can't continue, it also helps you when you have to do hiring. It helps you when you have to push back on teams and say, look, we can't do that right now. Here's what our schedule is. It can also help you prioritize things that are in your queue. Because there may be today, yes, marketing may be the most important thing because the game was just released and all that stuff has to get done in the next week so that all those channels can be filled, which means that the artwork for the concept artwork for the logo for game that's coming out in a year gets put on the back shelf for a little while, but a lot of teams, if they're not keeping complete information moving back and forth, they can't justify that because the person who's waiting for that logo is going to go and complain to upper management and say, they're not helping us. I don't understand what's going on, blah, 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 blah. But if the upper management knows that they're centralizing on the game we just released, that's more important to the company. And they have to back you on that decision. So setting priorities is not simple. It is not a simple case at all because if you're a creative services team, as an example, every single person that comes to you believes that their job that they're asking you to do is the most important thing for the company. Every single one of them. And sadly, you have to also help them believe that, which is a weird place to be in. But when you do say no, you have to be able to have the backing of the people above you to do that. Because I've seen a lot of departments that were not allowed to say no to incoming work, no matter how much work they had on their plate. Okay, let's see what's up here. Back up for the winner. Oh. Communication is always key, and it's also the hardest thing. We had talked about when Blizzard was 12 people and when we were 24 people, and the magic number somewhere around 50 is where you start losing communication to everybody in the company, and it sucks. Prioritization is the second most important thing after communication, and it can be brutal because there's so much we would like to do in the end, but yeah, it's just not possible. I mean, even the things that we're putting up together here, all the storylines and stuff like that, it's great that we have the opportunity to do that. Are you going to get that kind of opportunity everywhere? No. In most cases, in all honesty, you're going to get a half a page little write up, and they're going to say, make this work. Yeah, my teams have, and so for those of you that do roll other people, another thing that I tell people is I tell my teams is this: if we fail, or if the team fails on something, it's my fault. If we succeed, if the team succeeds, it's their fault. Because if most of the time when a team fails, it's because their manager did not have or go look for or make a point of having all the information needed for the job that they were given. There's also a situation where producers or leadership or stuff like that isn't doing proper reviews of work with the client, which is something I find absolutely hilarious because to me, I'm and I think I've even talked about it in the interview that I put up a couple weeks ago, is I want the person asking for the work to be talking to the people doing the work. The middle management thing does not always work in a creative atmosphere. And the reason it doesn't work is because the client will say, I need X in blue with this and that. And by the time it gets to the person doing the work, somehow it's blue. I mean, it's green. Why is it green? So when the client sees it the first time, the first thing they say is, why is it green? I didn't ask for green, I asked for blue. Always have your client talk directly to the person doing the work. I mean, I got a lot of pushback from management because of that, but that's how I did it. They will either talk directly to the person doing the work or a trusted person like a art director or something like that to to if the art director understands what the client wants, it's easier for him to describe it, to interpret the client into artist. So having a great art director is phenomenal. And I've had a couple cases where they were. In my last job, the art director that we put in place was absolutely probably one of the most creative people I've ever worked with. And I really enjoyed working with him. And I 100% enjoyed helping promote him into the position where he could make those choices and make those decisions. Because I said the day that I met him and worked with him for a little while that this guy should be running the department. I don't understand why he's not, so. Yes, instructions get diluted. And then you also have what we talked about last week. You also have scope creep, where every single person along the line adds something to it, and you end up making something that doesn't work. You also have managers that don't give artists all the information they need. All they say to them, like they'll come in and they'll go, here's what I have. They'll show it. And I've seen bad art directors who just go work on it again for another week. And I'm like, that's not instructions. That's not telling them what's wrong. You're sending an artist with blank slate to go fix something, but he has no idea what you're looking for. You can't just say, work on it for another week. That is horrible. Because there's nothing to work on. You haven't told him why. So I like that. I've been in situations where I've asked art directors, why does this piece work? And an art director goes, oh, it just does. And then I asked a producer the same thing. This piece of art, why does it work? And the producer goes, I'm not a director. Why? What is my opinion? I go, well, you are the producer of this project. So tell me why this works or doesn't work. Then I asked an artist, the person that I thought should have been the art director in the first place, and he gave a perfect feedback on the project that we were looking at. And it was, I'm like, whoa. Whereas the actual art director at the time couldn't. All he could say was, oh, it's just not right. Well, what does that mean? And yes, instructions get diluted. That's a hard decision to make as well. There is also a competent in protecting of people doing the work from whims of clients. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. If you're in a creative services team, there are the people that try to go around the system and get your artists to do things for them that they shouldn't be doing, that it's not on their schedule and should not be worked on. And that's something that I put a stop to immediately with any team that I'm working with. I do not allow that. If you have if you have a piece of art that's been requested, that you have requested, that's in the pipeline, and an artist has been assigned to it, you can talk to that artist about that piece of work. However, if you do not have a piece of work in the pipeline that has not been assigned to an artist, you have no right to go directly to an artist on that team and say, do this piece of work for me, because the producer doesn't know about it. The schedule doesn't know about it. You don't know what that artist's schedule is. That artist may not understand that they can say no to you. So yeah, there's a lot of those kind of issues, and dealing with that kind of stuff sucks. Because clients will call artists directly. You just have to put a stop to it. No, I think you're half right, Savvy. You wrote, I need a creative vision that can be verbalized. That's not always the case. I think that the most important thing, and I say this all the time, and it drives people that I used to work for crazy. I go, what is our North Star on this? Because you can be coming at some pretty cool visual things that go in directions that could majorly improve the piece that you're working on. But it is useless if you don't have that initial North Star to follow to get there. And that's where the problem comes in. Because if you don't have that North Star that every team in the company is following, then a single team cannot course correct everyone when they're not following the same North Star. And I've seen companies that go out there and will give different departments completely different marching orders to where they're marching in opposite directions and sometimes overlapping each other or walking over each other. And it sucks. It is no way to work. You also have 1,000 people along the line, each of their own very strong personal opinions on stuff, which is no more valid than anyone else's. That can, oh yeah, there's people that literally, while an artist, I've seen situations where someone's walking past an art team, just like going from their desk to the bathroom. They see something on screen and they feel like, oh, I have the right to sit there and give every opinion I have on it, even though it's not the project I'm working on. It's not the game I'm working on, but I'm still going to throw my 2 cents in. And an artist won't know not to listen to them. An artist will assume, oh, this is someone that is an important person in the company. I need to do everything they said, which will then send them off on a direction that just absolutely will destroy any work that's getting done for that North Star. But yeah, because everybody thinks that they know and that they have the right to change everything. They don't. The only people that an artist or a programmer or stuff like that should be changing their direction for is if their producer or their direct supervisor says that's the new direction. Yeah, we got off on a lot of stuff here. We went from meetings to just bad management, because bad management sucks. And I will say 100% in my first, I would say 20 years, I was a terrible manager. Hated it. I didn't know how to do it. Did nothing. But I did go back and get not a business degree, but I got a psychology degree and tried to implement it, but didn't work out at first. It took me a while to figure out how to lead people the right way, because it's not an easy thing, but I cut it down into small chunks for myself to remember. Milafra Tuga, thank you very much for the follow. I try to chop it down into things that I can remember, like some of them are funny, some of them are just for me, but it's the whole thing about if we succeed, it's your fault. If we fail, it's my fault. That's one that I learned a little bit later. There was a lot of things that I should have been doing with that. Another one is always have a North Star. Always be talking to the client directly as to what happens, and any changes that are put forth by other people, always run by the client to see if they even know about them, because sometimes they don't. And always have your team's back, even when they're wrong. Always have their back. One of the things I always do, and it freaks people out, is if if the president of the company, like Mike, comes up and says, oh, that piece of work that you did was great. I know that he's talking about what the team did, not what I personally did. So what I always did, and I did this at every job I think I've ever been in, is I say who actually did the work on that project to that person. Oh, that was done by this person. This part was done by that person. Those are the things that a good manager does. If Mike were to come up to me and go, that really sucked, the only thing I would say is, okay, that's completely on me. I failed on that. I will make sure it doesn't happen again. I will never name a person that worked on that project. because that's not what you do. You know, you go and talk to the people that worked on the project. You ask them why it got to the point that it was. And trust me, I was never good at this part in the first parts of my learning how to manage stuff. You know, so it was a hard learning experience. But in the last 15 years, I felt I got really quite a bit better at it. You know, because the whole point of going back to someone and saying, okay, look, you fucked this up. Why? You know, and just going, these are the things we talked about. These are the points that you were supposed to hit. These were the goals you were supposed to hit. You know, and most of the times these were projects that were under huge deadlines. Like it was something for BlizzCon or one of the big projects that we were working on. And we had to release something that I personally would not have wanted released. However, there was no time left. There was no time to fix it. You know, so yes, I had to take the hit. And that's okay. I have no problem taking the hit for that. You know, luckily I had managers and stuff like that or VPs and stuff like that that were in charge of me that would understand that the number of good things coming out of the department highly outnumbers the bad. And that every now and then there is going to be a fluke, but I take responsibility for it. You know? And then I go into the soundproof room with the person that did the work and go, what the fuck is going on? What are you doing? But it's a private conversation. It's not a yell at them on the floor conversation, although I have yelled at people on the floor before I adjusted stuff. So yeah. Oh, geez, really? I talked right through to another zombie. Sorry, guys. I'm just babbling on. You guys got me on a roll. Yeah. So too many meetings suck. Bad managers suck. Keep everybody informed. Good. Information is the key. You know, build ways to give your team visibility and points throughout the not just the team you're working on, but the company you're working on. You know, make sure that everybody knows what everybody's doing, so that people can't say that you're hiding or that you're a black box that nobody knows what's going on. Zombie. That was a fast 25 minutes or whatever it is. That was scary fast. So Rogers, we'll talk about the CVs again in a minute, because the CV resume stuff is another thing I'm very adamant about that I failed on for many, many years in my yes, documenting your work is a big thing. That's what notebooks are for. You know, and as far as documenting your work, a parent is also document how you did some things. Because in our business, coming up with innovative and technical stuff is part of what we do every day. However, if we're not writing documentation for it to where we can teach someone else how to do it, we can get completely overrun because we're the only one that knows how to do something. And people go, oh, but if I'm the only one that knows how to do that, they can't get rid of me. Yes, they can. You know, in fact, they could get rid of you for being the only one that knows how to do that, because you're not sharing your skill set. Because technically, they're paying you. They own it while they're paying you. My work is gathering things to work and showing the team through docs now. Good. One of the things that I've done it for every team I've ever had is just the morning stand up. I'll wait 3 seconds because I want to go back to this point up here and then we'll start from there. Blah, 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 blah. So okay, yeah. Sarantis says it reminds me I need to update my resume CV. Yes, in fact, I've talked about that several times on the show, is whether you're looking for a job or not, you should be updating your CV or resume every year or two. And it's not about going out and looking for a job. It's about taking a moment to look back at what your successes are and what you've accomplished in that time. Because we have a tendency to blow past them, and that's not a good thing. But when you have to stop and update your resume or CV in the UK, then you have to stop and think about, oh, what have I accomplished this year? What have I done in the last 6 months? As well as just keeping notes on it. Documentation was something I was talking about in the zombie break. Is you have to not only document what you're doing, but you have to document the techniques you've come up with to get your job done. So that, number one, you have those techniques always in a document. In fact, that's what like these books are great for. Is, if nothing else, if you have a blank book, all you have to do is just put your notes in it in regards to what steps in Photoshop did I have to take to do this? What steps in After Effects did I have to do? If I did something in Premiere, what techniques did I do? So you always have just a log of them. Also, so that if you get, like, say, 10 projects of the same kind, you can teach somebody else to do them as well, and you can get them done twice as fast. But documentation of just what you're doing, what's going on, all that kind of stuff is always a good thing, because you never know. Taking 5 minutes at the end of the day and just adding a quick journal entry of what you did that day is not a bad thing. My work is getting things to work and showing the team through docs how. Yeah. That can be a lot of fun, actually. I actually love teaching people new things and showing them how to do things in a different way. That's one of the things I've always enjoyed. Also, just being able to, when they come to you and say, I'm stuck, help, and being able to help come up with answers for them is just a lot of fun, or knowing that you already had the answer that you could just share with them. Yeah, simple notes save you a lot of trouble when they go, okay, go write something up on this. And you're like, what? I've never written anything up on anything before. Why do you suddenly want this? Because technically, because you did it at work, they own it. I started out as an intern working on a legacy app with no documentation and poorly structured code. Oh, Nintendo in the early 90s. Okay, get it. I managed to work with it, but would have appreciated documentation. Yes. In fact, Alan talks about it in one of the anniversary videos. Is all they had was untranslated Chinese Nintendo documentation. So they had to find people to help them translate it so they could do it. My job is to make tools and help workflow, only to be ignored by senior staff. Yeah. Well, part of the ignored by senior staff, and this is what I was talking about earlier, Sarantis, is they don't know where to look to see what you're doing. A lot of them, if you have a producer, it just tells you that your producer isn't getting the information up to them. Building a central location for because one of the things we did in the last job is I had them also create for the team a finished work directory. for all the jobs that they were doing, all finished work would go into that directory. And it would be read only to anybody outside the department. And here's why. Is because you could deliver, say, a logo to a department. And that logo, because everybody thinks everybody can do art, is that department may change that logo. And then when somebody else sees it, they think the original department that made the logo did it. And they can get in trouble for it because it's not what what was expected. So what we created was we created a true North directory, whereas every single piece of art that was created by that team was put in the master directory, where other teams could pull it, they could grab it, all that stuff, but they could not override it. They could not make adjustments to it. They could not change it. And then what we could do then was anytime someone came looking for an original logo, we could say, go here. Did you check in the finals directory? And a lot of people like it was funny how many people came back and go, I can't alter that logo. Why can't I alter it? Because it's a master. You don't alter masters. If you want to change it, copy it down to your computer, make whatever changes you want, but our master doesn't get touched because that is an approved master all the way up the pipeline for the creative development, for the creative directors. So always having a master of what you've done, always having a central location where people can go and look at what you've done. And also you can set up searches and stuff like that. Or you can even have a cool tools guy write one of the things that we were talking about having was once we have the master directory. Oh, that sounds like thunder. Okay. Once we had the master directory, we wanted to be able to put for lack of a better way to put it, a website over the top of it that you can go in and look at things and stuff like that. But you could also mark things that you wanted and have them copied into a what? Thor is coming. I don't know what that means. Mark that into a basket. Then it would deliver those pieces of art that you asked for to you, or into a directory for you. Thunderbolt and lightning, very, very frightening. Galileo. Let's take a look at the maps. Come on, close up. Yep, tut tut. Looks like rain. Oh, so the worst of it's already passed. Oh well, no. Okay. With the way the wind is going, we're going to get another really bad spot coming up soon. Fun fact, ancient Vikings believed that the thunder in the skies caused by Thor's beating his hammer against his anvil. Yeah, or if you look at Sleepy Hollow, or no, Rumpelstiltskin, no. Yeah, where's the one where the old guy slept forever, but he was bowling? They used to say it was bowling and the pins being knocked over. I think he meant your son Jason is coming. No, I think he meant Thor, the thunder god is coming, because I said that I could hear thunder outside. I don't even know. I'm not even sure he's online today. Don't know. Did not look. Yeah, he's online. He's playing Ashes of Creation, looks like. So yes, another rant. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about with the bowling. Yeah, I'm trying to remember because it was the guy, he slept forever. He would fall asleep. And then he ended up going to the bowling thing. God, what? God, it was an old kid story, old child story. I just don't remember what it was. Not Rumpelstiltskin. That's the whole stealing babies and spinning gold thing. Hmm. See, now it's stuck. Rip Van Winkle. Yes, that's the one. Thank you very much. Because my mind would have spaced out on that for a little while. So good call. Yes, Rip Van Winkle. Howdy, Blaze. Okay, let's see what you guys have up here because we got distracted. I started out on the internet working on legacy app. Cool. Yeah, documentation in the early days was really, really rough. All the stuff that we did for the Super Nintendo stuff, like Alan said in the interviews that he did, is all the documentation they had was in Chinese, so it was, or Japanese, whichever Nintendo was, I forget right now. Um, it made it very difficult to translate to learn how to do it, but the programmers and everybody seemed to manage, and they were able to get us the information that we needed, so that was really cool. Alrighty then. Boop a doop boop. We are at this point here. This is all done. So yeah, so that is my simple management stuff. Old school documentation. Boss came with an important task. Tried to do it. It broke everything. Day 2. I tried to fix the broken stuff and made it work. Yeah, that's pretty much how it was done. Yeah, now it falls to the other thing that I say all the time is there are a finite number of problems with game making. And you will run into a finite number of things that you have to fix to make things work. But we as humans make those problems infinite. And we're really good at it. You know, you can take something as simple as deciding on the color for something and make it into a 3-week marathon of meetings and stuff like that. Or you can just say, it's Azure, whatever, it's Azure Blue. We're moving forward. You need someone somewhere along the line that just says, stop. Here's the decision, walk on. You know, and then keep the wolves at bay because the decision's been made. I really hate those pessimists. They find problems for all my solutions. Yes, they do, and they're very good at it. Because, and this is going to sound really horrible, but a lot of them, if you solve all the problems, they got nothing to do. They have no way to justify them being in the position they're in, and that's okay. Like at my last position, I said, look, my job is get you to the point to where you don't need me. And they laughed and thought it was hilarious. But that's what I was doing. I was like, okay, let's get the right people in the right places. Let's get the right people promoted and remove the people that shouldn't be in there. You know, let's do all the structure, let's get all the stuff. And then in the end, it was like, okay, we've reached up. And I went to my boss. I said, okay, we've reached a point. They don't need me anymore. So let's move on. You know? So I told the team that I loved them greatly and that they were doing a great job, and I walked away with my boss's condolences and all that stuff, and everybody saying thank you and all that. But there were still some on the team that felt that I probably should have stayed a little longer, but no, they had a very strong leadership team by the time I left, and they honestly, even I admit, at the end there, they didn't need me there. I was more a pain in the ass than anything else because we had already put all the structure in place they needed. We installed a tracking system for all the work. We installed reporting systems for everything that was going on. We fixed communication with the company as to what was going on in the department, who was doing what. Yeah. So we increased visibility to the department by 400% or something like that, to where everybody always knew what we were doing. Everybody was always informed, and we automated a bunch of stuff. We automated some Jira stuff to where even Jira was writing most of the weekly report that was sent out to all the managers throughout the whole company, including upper management. So that all worked out really, really well. And the team was doing amazing work. With the new structure in place, with the advancement of the production staff, the creation of the art director's position and putting the right person in there, all those kind of things, it worked. And the trust of the department across the company went from almost zero to just phenomenally high, to where there were creative things that they came and asked about, of how we would handle it, and it made all the difference throughout the whole company. So yeah. Okay, is part of you doing? They're very in case you have experienced it, how do you deal with budget problems and seeing your colleagues lose their jobs around you? That's the part that sucks. And here's what I will say about this is I've been in situations where I've had upper management come into my teams and remove people without asking me who should be removed and not telling me why. And that I don't appreciate anyway, because it completely undermines my ability to have the team trust me. I had a situation a couple times back where, because of the laws in the country and or state we were in, you weren't allowed to lay off more than 50 people at a given time. But we had a situation where the company wasn't making enough money, so we had to lay off 90% of the production staff. And we had to go in and say, okay, these 50 people are being laid off, and then convince the people that were still there that this wasn't just the beginning of something. Convince them that everything was okay, and then come back in 30 days and lay off another 50. And that sucked. The thing is, the only thing you can really do is this, is you can hopefully keep enough information flow between you and people above you to where they're honest with you, where they can bring you aside. We just lost power again. Just for a second, it just flashed. So the more they trust you, the more they'll bring you into those conversations. Like, I've had a situation where I had a pretty cool team. They were doing really, really good work. And layoffs happened. Nobody ever talked to me about who should be laid off, because I had a list of people that I was getting ready to probably let go anyway. And adding them to the layoff list would have been better than some of the really good, hardworking people that ended up being laid off because nobody talked to me. But there are times when it's just it's a financial burden on the company, and the company may not be able to sustain itself if they don't let people go, which has happened several times for several companies. Another thing to remember is 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with the job they're doing. And that's where you have an opportunity to remind them how great they are at art or programming or the things that they do and why it's great. Soft, thank you very much for the follow. I think that's where your hook in is keep building them up for the talents they have, and help them understand that companies, if a good person loses their job, the company's made a mistake. It happens every day. And you might want to also ask yourself, why is everybody around me losing their jobs, but I'm not? What have I done differently? What am I doing differently? You know, how can I help the people that I think are good and want to be here? What example can I set? What helping can I do? What teaching can I do to help them? Because the more people in there that have extreme talent are doing the job you have, the less day-to-day bullshit you have to deal with as a manager. The hell was that? Oh. All right, I have to scroll all the way down here and see what that was. Hang on. Sorry, a whole bunch of bells just went off in my head here. Oh, we got a 4-person raid. Woohoo! Thank you for the raid. Shout out to General Oni Lu Cam TV, who stopped playing Repo long enough to raid us. So thank you very much. Thank you for the raid. We really appreciate it. Your shout out has been logged and is in chat now with your link. I hope you enjoyed playing Repo. Hey, Only Lou Cam TV. Hello. Welcome. Raiders, to your defenses, please. So yeah, we do have a zombie attack coming up here. So happy to see you grow in this genre. I'm getting there. You know, I'm still learning. Yeah, there's some things that could be better. There's some things that could be worse. I will get there. Thank you for the raid. If that's your home, you have a significant home, sir. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, this is my home. This is the things that I've done for the last 30 years behind me here. How's the stream going? It's going very well. You know, I'm getting the hang of it. Oh, sorry, we are now in zombie mode. You guys arrived just in time to have the zombies eat your brains. This is how we deal with ads. We just put the zombie up, and this is how it's done. Sorrentos, my biggest issue I have to right now is that members of the staff only do the lowest quality work. It's my job to round them up and improve. However, they resist the improvements. In all honesty, Sorrentos, fire them. If someone is resisting making their work better, eventually it's going to affect the whole team. Because if you have a single person on your team that is not living up to the standards that everybody else has to live to, it causes everybody else to lower their standards. Why should I learn more? Why should I do better if Billy Ray Joe Bob over there is getting paid more than me and is still here? Oh, geez. Just started in 1991 and move all the way forward. Everything from Blizzard. I did work at Blizzard from 1991 to 2014. Sounds like they are quite quieting. Yeah. Let's see. Worked for Amazon for a short time, which I thought was hilarious. And then they worked on a game called Recall and New World, but it didn't come out when I was there. Then I went to Houston and worked for 6 Foot and did help release Rime and Dreadnought. And then went over to the UK and for 4 years spent time with the guys over there at RuneScape. So, and then came back here last year and semi-retired and started doing this in November. Hope that answers your question. So, yeah. And we are playing through the games. We did play Warcraft today, the first one, and we have finished Blackthorn, Rock and Roll Racing, Death and Return of Superman, and a couple others. and the Sega version of Lost Vikings, as well as the Super Nintendo version. We still have a couple more Nintendo games that we have to get to. But yeah, I'm just playing through the games that I worked on over the last 33 years. It'll be 34 in September. And yeah, as well as doing things like this, like game dev talks and stuff like that. A copy of Blackthorn and started playing it yesterday. Cool. It's a good game. I think you'll enjoy it, Blaze. I don't have the power. I've already made recommendations to you, but they are unable to do what's needed. Sometimes that happens. All you can do is say in writing, these are the changes that I would make, and you would send them to them. I've done this 1,000 times, and I've made some enemies doing it, and I've made some great friends doing it. You know, see what the problem is, because most teams, every team knows where the problem is on that team. If you come in and you're a new manager for that team and you don't do anything about it, then you know what? They're just going to look at you and go, "Oh, same old crap, different day." You know, why do I not have to listen? Why do I listen to him? I don't have to. You know, they'll replace him in 3 months when he fails. So, you know, but if you have people on your team that are not willing to learn the skills that they need and are not willing to improve, it is going to affect your whole team, because the whole team knows that that's the case. And the longer that those people are kept in positions, the more likely your team is to fail. Because why should I do it if Billy Ray Joe Bob doesn't have to? Our interns show higher quality work. Yep, sometimes that is the case than the senior staff. I often catch mistakes they make. The interns have to correct many of the mistakes the seniors. Yeah, because they get lazy and they get set in their ways. You know, but upper management should be slapping their hands. Will I ever fully retire? You know, I don't know. I don't think I can. I've tried. God, how many times? The big one was 2014 when I left Blizzard. That was the big one, and I managed to not want not. That's incorrect. It wasn't that I didn't want to take a job. I just didn't think that I should, because I was retired, and I absolutely hated it. You know, I did all the things. I went to Maui. I did some traveling, did all the stuff, went and did all the things you're supposed to do when you retire and stuff like that, and got bored out of my mind, because I realized then I am a person that when I wake up in the morning, I need to go somewhere. You know, so it's like, okay, I need to go here. I need to go and do this. I have a list of 50 things I have to do. I need to go do them. You know, and it's, in fact, I'm getting more to that with this. However, I'm also getting to the point to where it would probably be better if I rented an office somewhere in town and went to that office every day than having this home office where I just come downstairs and come in. Because I'm finding it that because I'm home, I'm not fully concentrated on home, not fully concentrated on work. But if I had an office I had to go to every day, then that would change, because I go, oh, I have to be at the office at 9. This has to happen. Before I leave the office, these things have to be done, you know. But when I'm home, I'm like, okay, well, I can go and run some errands, then come back and finish that later today. And then we get into situations like we're in now, where I didn't do as much over the weekend as I should have. And I'm behind now. So no, I will not. To make the answer shorter, no, I don't think I can ever retire. I always will need to do something. No. Power. I've already made. Okay, we did that one. I found some Blackthorns. Yes, play it. It's a fun game. Yeah, because interns, interns are hungry. As long as your team is hungry, they're going to keep improving and doing stuff. Once you put them in a situation where they're relaxed, like I used to tease Paul Sams, and Paul Sams used to come up to me and basically do the Wesley thing from Princess Bride. He goes, "I'll probably fire you tomorrow," that kind of thing, and I needed that because I had been there so long and because I was doing so much stuff, I was the worst thing you could say to me, and it was said to me in the last couple of years there is, "Oh, you're safe. Don't worry about it." That scared the crap out of me, because you should never feel safe. Creative people need struggle. They need the negative parts of creativity in order to remain creative, in my opinion. My wife has asked me to find a new job, and to be fair, I'm thinking about it a lot more lately. Well, the reason and you'll laugh about this, is Thor's mom, Jason's mom, is the reason why I ended up at Silicon and Synapse. Because we were living in Costa Mesa at the time in Orange County. And when I got out of college, my job was in Beverly Hills, where we were doing TV, graphics for television and stuff like that. And I would get up at 6 o'clock every morning, drive to Beverly Hills from Costa Mesa. And if you know anything about California traffic, that literally is about 2.5 hours to get 45 miles, and I would finish at 9 o'clock, or between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and then drive home and be home between 11 or 10 and 12. And my wife finally said, "Look, I can't do this anymore. We got 2 kids. You need to be closer so that if anything happens, we can take care of it," because it was just too far away. So I started answering ads and met Mike and Ellen and talked to them about the Cars for Rock and Roll Racing. And they couldn't afford me at the time, but that was in February, I think, was when my interview was. And in September, they called me and said, "We can afford you now. Come make the cars." And just never left. So, you know what? Sometimes a wife's concerns can lead to better things. At least it did for me. I'm not saying that it always will, but for me it did. Be a Survivor, thank you very much for the resubscription for 2 months. That's awesome. I appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully that answered your question. So yeah, sometimes you can get burned out doing something. So I was really lucky at Blizzard in that my job changed monthly, weekly, daily, yearly. I remember at one point Mike coming up to me, and I think it was about the 10th or 11th year. He just go, "What is your title now?" I have no idea, because I was just kind of all over the place doing things everywhere. Uh, Rush hour is 3 to 6. Yeah, California rush hour is deadly. Both morning and night. But I was raised and grew up there, so it's all I knew. You know, it's funny because when I'm with Frigg and she's complaining about traffic, I just kind of giggle. I go, "Well," I'm sure she's tired of hearing it. I go, "Well, in California, we don't have to dodge deer, but we do have to dodge trucks and cars and stuff." And they were making fun of me the other day because I drive like a Californian. I'm like, okay. Oh wow, where is it really? I just looked at the time. Interesting. Wife's concern is a good motivator. Yes, it is. Happy wife, happy life. Well, Cervantes, I mean, you wear 5 or 6 hats at the company, but are you being paid fairly for all those hats. Sorry, but I'm going to be very straightforward with you. Or are you the person, and I was this person years ago too, where at the end of the year, when they do your review, and they say they slip the piece of paper across metaphorically slip the piece of paper across the room, across the table, and give you the new amount they're going to pay you, do you ever say, can you do a little better? Because I was that guy for a long time. And then Alan, I had found out that what I felt was a lesser artist was someone that was doing less than I was getting paid more than me, and it pissed me off. And I went to him, I go, why are they getting paid more than me? I do like 10 times the work they do. And Alan said something very simple to me. He goes, because when it came time for raises, they asked, you didn't. So a company is not under any obligation to keep you at your true value. Their obligation is to keep you doing the work at the minimal cost they can. And 99% of the time, or 95% of the time, that first offer is just a first offer. Asking for more is in your best interest no matter what. Can you do a little better? All you got to ask. Okay, yeah, that's great. But can you give a little more? Oh, you mean the 5 hats thing? Yeah, they'll ask you that all the time. The pay I'm getting is on the low end, but acceptable considering the financial state of the company. 8%, okay. That's a good bump. Most companies are just like, okay, well, here's a cost of living raise, like 3 to 4%. Which I just find ridiculous, but that's me. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up today for the game dev stuff. I hope the conversation helped everybody. Hopefully I didn't bore the living crap out of you. And if I did, sorry. At least you're cleaned. From what I've seen, most raises are less than the cost of living. Yes, they absolutely are. And the company will give you every single excuse to keep you down there. So. Yes, it was. I have not looked at it, but it did come up on the side there. I just didn't see what it was. Come over here real quick and look. Cute. I will try to add that to tomorrow. My year-end bonus was 3K. Still did not clear my bills. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I was really happy about, and I know that all this has been removed, but Mike and Alan, when StarCraft came out, they changed the whole structure of compensation, because you still had your regular pay, but they added 3 things. They added 2 bonus periods for every 6 months, and based on the profit sharing from the company. And then based on your performance that year, you could get as much as 10% of your annual income as a year-end bonus. And that was really, really good for a lot of people, because the profit sharing was good. And I know that Bobby Kotick killed it all, but claiming that he was going to roll it into salaries, but I don't think it ever got rolled into salaries, from my understanding from people that were still working there when he did this. But it's sad. 1 to 5 rating, but no one gets those 1 to 5 rating things just suck. I hate doing them. They make no sense to me. And part of the problem is every single department, in some cases, are giving different criteria of what 1 to 5 means. And that's not fair. If you're going to use a 1 to 5 system or a 1 to 10 system, which I would prefer something 1 to 10 because you have more subtlety there that you can play with, then give a correct North Star to what each of those numbers means when it comes to the performance of the people that you're doing. There are several things, like the 1 to 5 was one. Another one that and I've noticed this on several companies, there's one way to tell if layoffs are coming, in my opinion. And that is if they bring out the 9 box, layoffs are going to happen at your company. Because every company I've ever been in, they use the 9 box to evaluate people in the company. And when they do that, and I even wrote this to one of the companies I was at, I'm like, look, you just released the 9 box. You've just told the whole company you're going to do layoffs. What's up? And I had HR tell me, oh, no, we're not doing layoffs. And then I sat down a couple weeks later with the owner of the company. I said, look, this is what the 9 box means in our industry. And he admitted, he goes, yeah, we have to do layoffs. Let me see if I can find an example of the 9 box. It's an evaluation. It's a way to evaluate employees. See if I spelled this right. Okay, so this is the basic 9 box. Let me see if I can get a big picture of it here. It is, and it's even the name makes you just want to go, shut the fuck up. That was just mean, but that's what it says to me. The 9 box, as put into the CERN, let me take the logo down. Sorry about that. The 9 box model, a successful performance model management tool. It basically means you're all fucked. And here's what they do is you have to break down every single person into this 9 box thing. And anybody in these red zones is 100% probably going to be fired or laid off. If you haven't seen this, you're lucky. But this is exactly how they break down every single person, how they're doing, all that stuff, and then upper management, some of the ones that come out of our industry and come in, they use this to decide who goes. So yeah, so this is one of the tools that they use. So if anytime your company says, okay, we're going to do a 9 box on all your people, 9 times out of 10, anybody you put down there in the red is going to get laid off or get removed. And yes, that is nasty, but that's how business is done. You have to remember, you're taking corporate business types and putting them into the game industry, and they're going to do things from a corporate business type way, which is not the best way for everybody, but it is how they choose to do it. And they have a right to do it because it's their company. Technically, they could walk in and say everybody get out, depending on what state you're in or what country you're in, there's different rules for that. But yeah, that is how it works. Sometimes it depends on your supervisor. Sometimes people above him do it, and he knows nothing about it. I've had people under me fired without my knowledge, and that was never fun. People aren't just potential risks. Well, true, but this is what they use it for. Reducing someone's career to a quantified. I 100% agree with you, Savvy. It's not the way it should be done. I'm just saying this is what it's done. If ask anybody that's seen this, and then within literally 3 to 6 months, layoffs happen, and it's been pretty consistent in our industry from what I've seen. We know that you are the top performer, but we are sending all of the production to Mexico. Pick up your shit and leave. Yeah. See, that's one thing why I like the UK and the EU's way of doing things is you can, because when we were in Houston, we had to lay off people from the Berlin office. But the people in Berlin, the people in the UK, people in the EU, you can lay them off, but they still are employed by you for 3 months. So it's not like in the US where it's like, okay, we're laying you off. IT's boxing up your shit. They'll carry it out to your car for you. They'll meet you there. You know, layoffs in the US are you're out now today. You know, and that's just brutal because you lose not just your income, you also lose your health care. You can lose all kinds of stuff, life insurance, everything.
Brains.
Hmm, that's funny. Yeah, people are not reduced to that, but corporations do. That's how a lot of times they make decisions on who goes and who stays, whether it's fair or not. I've never seen one be fair or even want to be fair. It's just literally about getting the numbers down, both numbers of people as well as um, costs. And for every internal employee you have, you not just have their salary, but you have to add 40% to the cost of just keeping them in house, you know, for all the different things that the company has to pay out for you to be in house. Yeah, my time in the UK was amazing, and I like a lot of their hiring firing rules more than what we have here because I there's been times when I've watched really good people literally be called to HR, walked out of the building, and people in the department pack up their stuff and literally walk out to the parking lot and say that, and then they lose everything, you know. They lose their income, they lose their medical, they lose life insurance, they lose any number of things, you know. It's really kind of bad. Whereas in the UK, there's a little bit more, UK and the EU, there's a little bit more understanding. Number one, a lot of them have free healthcare, so you don't have to worry about keeping a job you hate because you'll lose your healthcare. You know, but hopefully one day we'll fix that. We do have. Oh, you have. Oh, okay. You have unions there too. Yeah. Well, never forget that when you hired somewhere, you're hired for your set of skills. The company will see you as a tool, yes, before it sees you as a person. A decent place will understand that people will have their own problems. Yes, you are 100% true. Another thing, and this is a harsh one to learn, and it's going to sound terrible, but I'm going to tell you. Also remember, HR is there to protect the company, not you. So I'm sorry to tell you that, but that is their job. Their job is to protect the company from lawsuits. It is, and you have to keep that in mind when you're talking to HR. Make sure you know what you're saying. Make sure you understand what the consequences are of it, but also know they're there for the company. They're not there for you. And I know that sucks. That one was a tough one for me to understand, and it's so bad. The one thing I do not like about Ohio, they fire you for anything. Oh yeah, there's a lot of states like that. There's a lot of places in the U.S. that I can fire you for tripping on the carpet. You know, so yeah, it sucks. Let me end this section here. Uh, I guess it didn't go. I said go. There you go. Let's go over.